Hi. It started with the clock. Or maybe my noticing of it. You don't track time in a marriage the way you do at work or in traffic, but lately, I'd found myself watching the numbers on my phone whenever she wasn't home. 10:42 p.m., 11:07, 12:19. Each minute after midnight felt heavier, like the air in our house got thicker without her in it. She said I was overreacting, that the new project at work had late deadlines, that the team would sometimes go out afterward to unwind. She said the word unwind like it was a legitimate line item in her job description. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But little things kept slipping through. Her perfume changed, not the scent I'd given her last Christmas, but something sharper, more assertive. The kind of scent you wear when you want to be noticed, not remembered. Her phone, once casually tossed on the kitchen counter, was now locked away in her purse the moment she walked in. She started showering before coming to bed, even if she swore she'd already showered at the gym earlier. Still, every time I brought it up, she'd tilt her head and give me that mix of disbelief and mild irritation, like I'd just accused her of robbing a bank in broad daylight. "You have to trust me," she'd say, and I'd nod because I didn't have proof. Proof makes all the difference between being paranoid and being right. Then came Friday night. It had been a long week, and I told her I might meet up with a couple of friends after work. Truth was, I didn't have a plan. I just didn't want to be home alone, watching the clock again. I ended up at Murphy's, a dimly lit bar on the corner of Hawthorne and 8th. It was the kind of place where no one cares who you are as long as you keep your tab open. I sat at the far end, near the jukebox, nursing a whiskey I wasn't sure I even wanted. The music was low, the hum of conversation just enough to keep me from feeling entirely alone. I'd been there maybe 40 minutes when I saw her. The door swung open, and in came the cold night air, and her. Not just her, though. Him. Tall. Dark jacket. A confidence in his posture that made my stomach tighten. They were close enough that her shoulder brushed his as they laughed at something only they knew. I didn't even think, just raised my glass in an automatic, almost sarcastic salute. And then she saw me. Her eyes widened. Her hand froze mid-gesture, and the glass she was holding slipped just enough to tilt. The amber liquid inside caught the light as it spilled over the rim, splashing against the floor. She didn't look down. She didn't even look at him. She looked at me, and for the first time in months, there was no irritation in her expression, no rehearsed innocence. Just shock, raw and unguarded. I didn't smile, didn't wave her over. I just held my glass in the air a little higher, a quiet toast to the moment the clock finally struck midnight on all my doubts. That's where it began. The unraveling. Not with shouting, not with accusations, but with the silence between that raised glass and the one she dropped. She didn't move toward me. She didn't have to. Her face had already told me more than her words ever would. I watched her mumble something to him, her eyes darting like she was calculating exits. Then she set the glass, now half empty and dripping onto the bar, down with deliberate care. He turned to see what had frozen her. His gaze landed on me, curious but not yet defensive. He was taller than me, broader in the shoulders, the kind of man who probably assumed life would bend to him. He put a hand on her back as if to claim her, and that little gesture, possessive, protective, made something cold settle in my chest. I didn't stand up. I wanted her to make the move. She did. She walked over slowly, like she was wading through deep water. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice low but tight. "Having a drink," I said, glancing down at my half-full glass. "Same as you." Her jaw tightened. "This isn't what it looks like." I raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "Because from here, it looks exactly like what I've been asking you about for months." Behind her, the man had turned back toward the bar, pretending not to listen but clearly watching. He had that slight, smug tilt to his head, the kind that says he knows. She exhaled through her nose. "I can explain, but not here." I took a slow sip, never breaking eye contact. "You've had plenty of time to explain. You just never wanted to." A beat of silence passed between us. Not the kind that means you're searching for the right words, the kind that means there aren't any left. "Finally," she said, "I'm going to head out." "With him?" She flinched. That was answer enough. I didn't follow her. I didn't cause a scene. I just watched her walk back to him, lean in close, and whisper something I couldn't hear. They left together, his hand on the small of her back like it belonged there. When the door shut behind them, I let the whiskey burn its way down and ordered another. Not because I wanted it, but because I needed the extra moment to decide what came next. It's funny, when you suspect something for long enough, the truth doesn't hit like a punch. It lands like a confirmation, a quiet nod to the version of you that's been screaming in the back of your mind all along. By the time I left Murphy's, the plan was already forming. Not revenge, not yet. Something more careful, precise. Because if she thought I was overreacting before, she was about to find out what measured really looked like. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I drove aimlessly through the city until the streets blurred into a wash of lights and shadow. My phone buzzed twice, once with a text, once with a call. Both from her. I didn't answer. Whatever she wanted to say would be rehearsed, diluted. I didn't want her version. I had the truth now. By morning, I'd already moved from disbelief to strategy. First, I pulled our joint financial statements. I'd been the one managing the bills for years, so I knew where to look. The hotel charges were there, different names, same location, scattered over months. Some were under hers, some under a card I didn't recognize. A little digging later, I found it was his. The next week, I kept my distance. I was polite but distant at home, as if we were polite strangers renting the same apartment. She noticed, of course, asked if I was still mad. I told her I wasn't mad. I was tired. That was true in a way she didn't understand. While she worked late again, I met with a lawyer. Not for divorce papers, not yet, but to understand my options. I learned about asset division, about how to document infidelity, about how timing could be everything. The advice was simple: gather evidence, move quietly. So I did. I hired a private investigator, the kind of man who could blend into any setting and walk away with exactly what you needed. 3 weeks later, he handed me a folder. Inside were photos of them, holding hands outside restaurants, disappearing into hotels, laughing in the park like they had nothing to hide. And then there was one photo that stopped me cold. Her at the same bar, Murphy's. Only this time it wasn't the night I was there. She had a pattern. I didn't confront her with the pictures. Not yet. I wanted the moment to be hers, to walk into a room thinking she was in control and realize too late she wasn't. That moment came on a Thursday. I told her I was working late and went back to Murphy's. Same seat, same whiskey. An hour later, like clockwork, she walked in, with him. This time, I didn't raise my glass. I just laid the folder on the bar, right where she'd see it when she looked my way. It didn't take long. Our eyes met, and hers dropped to the folder. She froze, the same shock as before, but this time it wasn't just surprise. It was recognition. She knew exactly what I had. Her glass stayed in her hand, but her grip was trembling. And in that moment, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even hurt. I was done. She thought my silence before was overreacting. She was about to learn it was just the beginning. I left the bar before she could come over. No scene, no last words. Just the sound of my boots on the worn wood floor and the faint clink of her glass as she set it down. That night, I moved the rest of my important documents into a locked drawer at my office and transferred what I could from our accounts into one solely under my name. The next morning, I met my lawyer again, this time with the folder in hand. It moved quickly after that. The investigator's photos, the financial records, the hotel receipts, they built a case so solid even her lawyer didn't try to fight it. The divorce was filed under fault, and my attorney made sure every detail of her late nights and unwinding sessions was neatly documented for the court. She didn't contest. She couldn't. The day the papers were finalized, she sent one last message. I never meant for it to get this far. I stared at it for a while, thinking about the months I'd spent staring at the clock, waiting for her to come home. Then I deleted it without replying. I heard through a mutual friend that things with him didn't last. They rarely do when they're built on the ruins of something else. As for me, I kept the same quiet routine. Early mornings, work I cared about. Evenings with friends who didn't ask about her, because they didn't need to. Sometimes, when I pass Murphy's, I glance at the door. Not because I'm hoping to see her again, just to remind myself of that night. The one where everything finally made sense, when the clock stopped ticking and I realized the silence I'd feared was actually freedom. And I raise an invisible glass to that. Every single time. Bye-bye.